You're listening to the Archaeology Podcast Network.
You have my sword.
And you have my bow.
And my trowel.
Hi, you're listening to episode 40 of And My Trowel, where we look at the fantastic side of archaeology and the archaeological side of fantasy. I'm Tilly.
And I'm Ash.
And this is part 2 of our discussion with archaeology, conservator, restorator, all words that I know I've been taught before. Sorry, Jess, who was a previous guest that came on and told me all these words, but I've forgotten which one's which. And tattoo artist. Rhoda Flubber, chatting all about the archaeology of tattoos. So, Rhoda, last episode we kind of introduced you a little bit in terms of what you do and how you got into archaeology and what your work as a tattoo artist is. But perhaps we can go into more about your archaeological background. So you started doing restorative work. So what does that actually involve? What do you do on the daily in terms of restoration?
On the daily, yeah. Currently, I am employed at the Berlin Heritage State Department for artifacts that surface in the ongoing excavations here in the city.
Oh, cool.
We have money for the project and we have many artifacts coming out of the Berlin grounds at the moment.
So it's sort of from excavation companies that are around Berlin, you just get all of their stuff that needs restored?
No, only from the Berlin Heritage State Department.
Oh, okay.
Only from the department. And I'm employed at the Museum for Prehistory, who are in collaboration with the State Department. And everything that the department digs out comes into the museum. And we have several different colleagues who mainly focus on one material. And my main focus at the moment is more of the metals, like iron, copper alloys, stuff like that. But we also have another one who does all the leather things and another one who does the wooden artifacts. But I'm employed for the iron artifacts.
Very cool.
Oh, iron artifacts are so cool.
They're very, although saying that, yesterday I had to sort through all of the iron objects in our thing, and because they're all so badly conserved, but they're not interesting. I know all archaeological artifacts are interesting, but
ours aren't neither. We have so many nails.
Well,
so many nails.
And you're just like, great, another nail fragment, and it's so corroded that it's basically just a lump of iron.
But yeah,
You're like,
I hate it.
We are already at the point where just like, oh no, we just sort it out.
yeah.
And leave it for the archaeologists to look at it. And if they want this particular nail, they can have it. But I'm not working on it unless they tell me to.
No, we had like one that actually looked like a nail, and all the rest just looked like lumps of stuff.
That's what
I was working on
what they usually do.
Yeah, and then I was working on the schlacker, which is the slag. Which is just
Slag's
also
cool.
even
so
more
much
just
fun.
a big lump of stuff. And you're like, great, let's categorize this one lump of slag.
we had this running gag at the first excavation that I went to that if you have your first excavation ever and your first artifact that you find ever, you have to get it tattooed. Imagine it being just a piece of
a bit of broken flint or an iron corroded nail. Or
a piece of broken flint would be cool. But
a piece of broken flint, but imagine having Schlacke.
Right.
What's that lump?
Or you can just have the word slag, which doesn't work in English because slag also means something else in English.
I think mine would be like a piece of clear pipe, which would be like really annoying.
Just although that is the ultimate line and circle and dot. So
that's true.
Yeah, there you go.
I could just get it in not in profile, like
in cross section.
Mine would have been an arrowhead.
Oh, see, that's cool.
That's pretty cool.
Go away.
I can't remember what my first find was. I think it was just... technically my first find, because I was doing the lab work and I was excavating incineration urns, like cremation urns. And I found a little glass vessel and a little silver ring. So
come on.
Go.
That is quite cool. What was your first artifact, Ash?
Well, actually, I think the first thing I ever dug was a sheep midden. So it would be a load of sheep bones.
Lots of bones. Nice.
Yeah, which is not as sexy.
Sick. You can make a sick tattoo out of that.
Depends on how you lay out the bones.
Yeah.
But like a guy next to me got a bloody gold ring. It was a
You were allocated to the wrong section, Ash.
And then the guy, the supervisor kicked off because he just put it to the side. Like, there's no context, nothing. And I was like, oh, and I was just digging up all the smelly sheep mitten. So
Lovely.
not great.
So speaking of sick tattoos, in terms of your kind of restorator work or conservator work, have you ever looked at like prehistoric tattoos for your work as well?
Oh yeah.
Not for my work in particular, but for my private interest, yes.
Oh, exciting.
Because unfortunately in the beautiful German earth and ground, skin doesn't really preserve that well.
Yeah.
Same here in Scotland, too acidic.
Yeah. Which, although there was the famous, I know it wasn't German, technically Austrian, right? Ötzi,
our all-time favorite Iceman, Ötzi.
Yeah, exactly. So it has to be very, very, very cold or very, very, very dry, right? Like that's the sort of main. Yeah.
What's your favorite prehistoric tattoo that you've seen on somebody's like body? Remains
on a living person or
on
remains. On remains.
On remains. Oh, jeez.
You have one. If not, then scratch the question.
Yeah,
but I'm curious.
I don't know. I really like all the Pazyryk tattoos.
All the animals.
They're. But when it comes to those, I like the less known, less fancy ones more because one of them has like a running rooster on his thumb.
You do birds. You say, I don't do birds, and then all I hear from you is tattoos of birds.
I mean, duck on a stick, come on. It's the best thing there is.
Cool, sorry, carry on.
He or she, I don't remember, he or she has this running rooster on tattooed on the thumb, which I think is awesome.
That is so very cool. I wonder what that symbolized. Like
is
what
it
that
the
was
name
supposed
or
to
something?
be.
That would be cool.
But imagine. Yeah, you know what I would love? A rooster on a thumb. That would look sick.
Or maybe he said he wanted something else on his thumb, and then the person was like, "I'm going to interpret that you mean you rooster. I'm going to draw a rooster on your."
Oh, there was like a story attached to it. He was after a rooster or something.
Yeah. Exactly.
But I mean, there's so many amazing tattoos out there in the archaeology realm.
Well, let's get into that. So hang on. First, before we get into that, let's remind ourselves of where we were before we were interrupted by me having to redo the Needle in a Haystack exhibit. So we were approached by the Hamunaptra Revitalisation Society. Quick background, they are a national leading society that helps recently revived mummies to kind of gain a bit of self-awareness and an understanding of their past lives before they were mummified. Their new initiative is helping their members to learn about themselves in a more physical sense. So they have asked us to come and help them in identifying tattoos. So last time we spoke a little bit about how tattoos are represented in sort of fantasy worlds and fantasy universes. But of course, as you mentioned, there's so many tattoos in our history and our past as well. So, I mean, I guess probably one of the questions you get a lot, but the best place to start, when were the earliest tattoos? Like, how long have we been tattooing ourselves?
Oh, for a very long time. I mean, the oldest ones, we already mentioned him, is Ötzi, the Iceman, and his tattoo. Yeah, he has actually 61 tattoos.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
But they're tiny.
Oh, okay.
Tiny lines, dots and lines.
Dots and lines. I see why you like him.
And if I remember correctly, he dates back to 3,200 BP, I think.
That sounds about right. Yeah. Sounds right.
Something like that. But there are also like Egyptian pre-dynamic mummy, pre-dynastic.
Before the aliens came and gave them thermodynamics,
pre-dynasty mummies around.
Yeah.
So for quite a while.
Okay.
As we know of, there might be more. Who knows what comes out of the permafrost? I don't know.
Well,
but I imagine tattoos being way older than that.
Likely, right? Like,
yeah.
Can you imagine?
But that's the oldest find that we have.
Okay. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So are tattoos found all over the world, or are there different perceptions of tattoos in different cultures? You know, does one culture see tattooing as something else, and then another culture sees it as something else? Like in the UK, I know right now in our current thought, we're getting more braver with tattoos in society. And some people, like my parents, would be like, absolutely no tattoos, seen as something completely off. But what do you think historically and even prehistorically, what's the different kind of perceptions of tattoos around the world?
Well, they're very different, and they vary depending on what time period you look at. In my opinion, I mean, tattoos are a global phenomenon, and not in the archaeology, but also in the ethnology and anthropology world, because there are at least 60 archaeology sites around the world of ancient tattooed human remains.
Oh, cool!
Wow,
that many even. Wow.
Yeah, but the largest concentration is like on the Pacific coast of Peru in the Nile Valley, and all the areas where the preservation conditions are just perfect, and where people didn't decide to burn there.
That's the point, actually.
Yeah, true, because you have to actually indeed be able to find them in order to.
You have to find them.
So I guess it's quite...
So that's what I meant with I am so sure that there were more tattooed people around. We just decided to burn them later in the day because it's the cultural approach to what they did back then. But in areas where the preservation is very great, like in Egypt and in the desert, you find more.
And do you see kind of patterns in, because you mentioned already I can't say the word, but Pazyryk.
I don't know if that's actually the correct.
We'll put the link in the show notes, so if anyone's wondering what we're talking about, you'll be able to see the correct version there.
Pazyryk.
I have no idea. Apologies for our mispronunciation if we are mispronouncing it. Tattoos, but then, and they're these sort of really beautiful, intricate animals and really kind of detailed and decorated. And then you have the Utsi tattoos, which are your classic line and dots. And you have, of course, in different parts of the world, the Inuit tattoos as well as very much like lines and dots. Do you see kind of patterns culturally in that? Or do you also have different cultures with a variation of patterns? Like, would you be able to look at a tattoo and go, oh, that's probably from this region or this time period or something like that? Or is too little data for that?
No, when you look at archaeology records, then as we said before, that the material cultures very often the same as the tattooing culture. So if you look at tattoos, you can most of the time immediately tell, that's Egyptian, because we have the eye of this typical eye, Egyptian eye tattoo. So you can say, it's probably not from, I don't know, Asia.
Right.
Because you find the image at the walls and in jewelry and stuff like that. And in my experience, it's if you look at it globally, you can tell apart like the Peruvian tattoos from the Egyptian tattoos, but within like for example the Peruvian areas, there are very different areas around where they tattooed their people, and in those areas they vary.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
do you notice a change in? I don't know if you can tell this at all, but like the way that they're tattooed, Can you,
the method of tattooing.
Yeah, the method. Can you see that the difference between the two cultures?
It kind of depends sometimes. For example, Ötzi, there has been this study by Aaron Deter-Wolf, Maya Sialuk Jacobsen, and Danny Riday, where they did the article for the Exarch.
Yes, it did.
Where they recreated in an experimental archaeology way the different methods of how ink could have been put under the skin.
Yeah, very cool.
And you have several different approaches. You have the incision tattooing, where you cut open the skin, just a slight bit. It sounds horrible, but just a tiny bit, just a tiny bit, and then
you just slice yourself open a little bit.
You slice it, just a tiny bit, and then rub the ink into it, and then as the skin heals and closes, the pigments are in there.
That's so cool.
Then you have the puncture tattooing, which is like the normal hand poke tattooing. But with hand poke tattooing or puncture tattooing, you can have several different tools. You could have the needle stacks with thorns and like thorn bundles. You could do it with
that's sorry, I'm just imagining someone coming towards me with a massive bundle of thorns.
No.
I just wanted a rooster.
You're getting a massive dog.
I do dots and lines. Many dots and lines.
They're very, very particular with how small and how fine they could go.
Yeah.
And you can also have bone needles, like a single bone needle, and metal needles that are just forged and shaped into the right size. And you have subdermal tattooing, which is the earlier called skin stitching.
Oh, right.
But
yeah.
Subdermal tattooing is the term to use, because stitching is like sewing stuff together, and with the tattoos you're not sewing.
Yeah.
Because you put it like the needle goes under the skin and like pulls the thread through, right?
Through,
That's that one. Yeah.
Yes, but you're not stitching.
Yeah.
So the term is like outdated. Subdermal tattooing.
I will try to remember that one.
But when you look at those, and when you have this awesome study that my colleagues did on the XI, you can see the difference in a heel tattoo and can tell this is made in this method and this is made in this method. Even though with puncture tattooing, you most likely can't tell if it's like a bone needle or a metal needle.
Yeah.
There still has to be some studies done on that. But coming back to your question, if you can tell the different techniques in different cultural areas, for the Peruvians, for example, we have one human remain of a arm, I think it was. And within this arm, you had several different motifs and several different tattoo bands. And then you had one band that was just puncture tattooing, and the next band right next to it was incision tattooing. And then the next band was a combination. And I go, what? So you can either think, is it a different artist? Is it a different style? Is it a different area? You don't.
Or was it the earliest form of experimental archaeology? Were they basically just doing
Danny's
the project,
job?
Right? They got the X-Arc Award thousands of years ago.
We already did this, guys.
Or does it relate to like life ways? Like you're doing something earlier at an earlier age, at a different form or method, and then it's changing over time.
Yeah, maybe it's a trend.
Yeah, maybe it's a trend, or maybe it's a story, you know. And you talked a little bit about like passing knowledge through tattoos earlier, and I want to kind of dig in a little bit more, just quickly about that. Like, how do you mean when you're talking about, especially Indigenous culture currently, you were talking about how that knowledge is transferable, and I suppose with archaeological tattoos, a lot of the material culture you were talking about with the thorn bundles and things are organic, so that might not necessarily survive, especially in acidic conditions. So what do you mean by passing knowledge? How does tattooing pass knowledge to the next generation?
Yeah, for me, and then it passes knowledge in terms of seeing what the people back then were capable of. And also passing knowledge in, we have this pattern in textile weaving and we have it in tattooing. Which, I don't know, far-fetched idea. Don't have to, I'm not...
We're quoting you on this, Rhoda. We're going to... What you say now is absolute 100% fact, and you can never go back on it.
Maybe the tattoos were patterns to use when you're weaving a textile. Far-fetched, I don't know. Don't quote me on that.
Very cool.
I like that idea. Yeah.
That's just an idea that popped into my head. It doesn't have to be true ever. I don't know.
And it keeps with you. It stays with you your whole life, no matter where you go and move around.
And that's why you want to vary the thing. That's why you have different things over time, because you're like, wait, actually, this method didn't work as well. Let's try this one. Oh yeah, that works much better. I'm going to use that one.
Yeah, but I don't think it's true, but could be. Could be, for example.
I mean, the thing is, I think what we really struggle with in our modern society is that we're so detached from material culture. Then back then, they were much more, ingrained with it. It was part of their life. So we just sort of consume. We don't really make anything anymore. So yeah, that's so interesting.
But also, when I talk about passing knowledge, is more like in the Maori culture, the tattoos represent their whakapapa, which is their heritage.
Yes.
So you can tell this person is from this fucker papa.
Yeah. And their
Ooh.
mother
Is it the word fucker papa? I think.
Yes, yeah.
And then,
Okay, good.
if you're looking at the ways that different ways people are being tattooed, maybe this way is representing some sort of heritage, and the other one is a combined heritage. And then, that could be.
Or tattoos tell stories. Like in some of the tattoos in the Inuit culture, they tell the story of their ancestors.
Yeah.
So you can point at your tattoos and be like, oh, this tattoo means this lore. You know, and so passing knowledge not only through the picture that you have on the skin or the line or the dot or whatever, but then also the bilingual spoken knowledge that you tell with the tattoo.
Yeah. So it's sort of almost using it as a form of ethnography, kind of like to tell the story and relate that to the archaeology. Oh, speaking of, I just had a great idea for a tattoo. Do you mind if we take a very quick break so I can sketch it down?
Fine, Telly. Okay, everyone, we'll be right
Take
back.
your time, Telly.
I will.
Sketches need time.
Well, it's going to be lots of lines and dots, but we'll see.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I think I'm done. I'm so pleased with this design.
Yeah, it's lovely. Is that a teapot? Of course it's a teapot.
Of course it's a teapot.
So we've looked at the representation of tattoos in fantasy and the history of tattoos, which has given us like a great background for this quest, I think. But mummies, right? We need to identify them. Yay! And study them. Study the tattoos on their skin, which leads to the question, how do you actually study it from an archaeological standpoint?
Yeah.
That's a good question, isn't it?
It is. Like, ow.
Indeed. That one we could. You can just answer it anyway you like, or narrow it down later.
Well, if you have tattoos on mummy, then of course, first and foremost, you check on what do I see here? Is it just patterns? Is it lines? Is it symbolic? Is it something that I've seen before in the material culture? Then if you can see it well, of course. If you can see that if they are preserved very well, if you can see it well, if you have a room that's brightly lit and everything, you also check on the placement. Where is the tattoo placed? And like you just do a list of what do I see, where do I see it, and what is it? And if you have this great publication with the techniques, you can also tell, okay, what technique was used making or producing this tattoo. And you check on the context of the archaeology or the provenance or whatever, like where is this from, how old is this? And what you also do is material studies, which is trying to determine the tools that could have been used, even though they have been in archaeological sites, tiny tools have been overlooked. Because I don't pick up a thorn. I don't care about the thorn. Right. And nowadays you're like, oh no, I need to check if the thorn has pigment on its ends.
Which indeed, I was going to ask that. So, I mean, has it now kind of developed to the stage where people are starting to look into that a little bit more? Because I guess, at the beginning, I mean, maybe let's go further back. So how did the kind of historical or the archaeological, I guess, study of tattoos even develop? Was it sort of always a part of archaeology? Because I'm just thinking of like good old Victorian sensibilities, and even though everyone had tattoos, they didn't want to talk about the tattoos, so they probably didn't want to look at the archaeology either. So how did that?
I think, or from what I've read, is that tattoo archaeology wasn't the biggest point of interest in most of the time. We have Lars Krutag, who helped raise awareness of indigenous tattooing in the early 2000s by working outside of the traditional academia. Because he did the TV series and tattooing magazines. Then, of course, we have archaeologist Deter-Wolf, who studies the archaeological sites and the archaeology tattooing heritage. But unfortunately, there's still a lot of misunderstanding amongst especially older academics who also are not interested in the topics and are not tattooed themselves because they're just an older generation. Therefore, the traditional academic path don't support this research yet, but it's grown in interest, especially with more and more people just getting tattooed and being interested in tattooing, and tattooing losing its
like the taboo status.
Yes,
sort of.
the taboo
stigma.
statement, and the tattoos losing their stigma of being like only for criminals, or
Yeah.
true. Being more seen as an art form, and then also the decolonization and the revive of indigenous cultures, having their tattoos, bringing back the knowledge of what do tattoos inherit and what is the origin and why do we do that. So the studies are coming. There are more and more people interested about tattooed mummies. Yes.
I guess it's one of those topics, that people are interested in, but not.
Yeah, but you never think about it.
Yeah.
It's just not. It's just a giant pyramid that you say, "Oh, wow, awesome."
No. Look for the thorns, people. Look at the floor.
Yeah, exactly.
Look for the thorns. Look for the bundles of sticks.
Yes.
And the pigment as well. I suppose,
And
too.
the pigments, yeah. Actually, Aaron is in May going to a conference on the research of tattooing pigments, just pigments.
Yeah.
I don't know the exact name of the conference, but it sounds awesome. And
we can find it and we'll try and put it in the show.
And I'm sad that I'm not going.
Yeah, it sounds interesting because, like, when you were speaking about traditional knowledge and storytelling and using to investigate these tattoos, and obviously there's the colonization that kind of devalues tattooing.
Yes.
And it's interesting, like, when you're looking at tattoos and the especially stuff like the pigments, the material culture, what kind of physical things are you looking at when you're studying these ancient tattoos? Like, what kinds of equipment do you use, and how do you go about identifying things like pigments? Because if, especially in older sites and kind of antiquarians that aren't really interested in tattooing, I'm assuming that quite a lot of these things have been potentially passed by and looked the other way. So what kind of equipment do you use, firstly? And then what other sort of physical things do you look at when you're trying to identify tattooing in the archaeological record?
Yeah. So my favorite tool to do it is the magic of infrared. Infrared cameras, yes. This is also used in like painting restoration when you want to see the sketch lying under the
cool.
pigments, because what infrared does, it's everything carbon based, like charcoal, a normal pencil, ink kind of stuff. Anything carbon based gets absorbs the again, don't quote me on that, but I think that's how it works. It's magic in my eyes. I should know this, but I don't. I always forget. But everything carbon based is, I think, absorbing the wavelength of infrared, and what comes back and goes through the filtered lens.
Bombarded by something. That's usually in these techniques, right? Things are being bombarded with the infrared, and that's absorbing something.
But that infrared is not damaging. It's completely damage free, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And when you look through the infrared camera, what you see is, with our camera that we have, is you see everything carbon based is very dark because it absorbs everything, and the rest, like the skin or the remaining textiles on it, appears in our camera like pinkish red.
That's so cool.
So you're not confused by like a darker spot on the skin, because in the infrared, if the darker spot doesn't have any carbon based ink on it, it's not a tattoo.
Interesting.
Pretty much right away see it extremely well. We have I think Aaron does. Aaron does have a picture on his Instagram, Archaeology Inc., where you can see it very well. We have like a human remain arm laying on the table.
I've seen
and then the photo is going through the infrared camera, where you can see the arm in the back. It's like a mush of brown and darker pigments kind of thing, because it's also not in focus. But through the camera, you can see it's like pinkish, and then very well seeable the tattoos.
Oh, wow.
Cool.
It's like the magic camera. We love it. It's so much fun.
But of course, and not even if, because of course, the mummies, it will be all like shriveled and everything. But I guess also tattoos fade over time, right? So would that also be able to pick that up, or is that another?
tattoos fading, like it's not like that the camera is seeing like a sharp edge and ignores the faded pigments. It doesn't. If you have a faded tattoo, you will only see the faded tattoo.
Okay.
And if you're lucky, the tattoo is healed nice enough and preserved enough that you can tell what it is, what it's depicting. If it's something that's like in the iconography world, and you can say, oh, that's a, I don't know, let's go back to the birds. That's a bird. But sometimes it's like it's a blob, and you're like, is it a bird? Is it a fish? Is it just I don't know.
Is it just a blob?
It's just a blob. I don't know. You kind of have to guess.
Yeah.
So but can you identify the pigments as well? Like what ink is used, what type, is that something you're able to do, or know what type of ink they were using as well?
What we can do is look at the anthropology of tattooing and look at the cultures that do still tattoo and what ink they use.
Okay. Kind of extrapolate.
But I myself, or the people that I work with, I think we've never done a
like a pigment analysis.
Yes. Yeah. I think we haven't. I'm not sure, but most of the time it's carbon based, so it's probably something burned.
Okay.
Like charcoal or soot or something.
So it's not ink as we traditionally think ink is. Like today we'd get a tattoo and it very much looks like ink.
It's also carbon based though.
Yeah. It's just interesting.
Yeah.
Like you think, I don't know, like squid ink or something.
They're all just extracting squid. Maybe it was that, that we talked about that fantasy book that you were saying that your boyfriend was reading, Rhoda, with the magic black powder. Maybe that's what that was for. It was tattoo pigment.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God.
Maybe I need to ask my colleagues if we have made some pigment, if they, not we, because I haven't, if they have made any pigment analysis.
Yeah.
We can maybe if Aaron comes back from the pigment conference, he can tell more.
Yeah,
exactly. Update. We need an update.
Exactly. There we go. Well, by that point, this episode should be released, I think, just after that, or maybe, no. When is
May?
This episode being released? May. Ooh, maybe. Have a look at the show notes, people, and you'll be able to see if we managed to get some references. But if not, then please do check out the Discord server from the APN, and we'll make sure to pop some references in there so that when we get them, in case we come across them at all. So
yeah, and speaking of identifying tattoos, there is another program. It's like an app. An algorithm-based app, called D-Stretch.
Okay.
The D-Stretch app. It's also often used in rock art research because it kind of finds commonalities in the use of pixels in the digital image and kind of breaks it apart and reprojects them in like false color spaces. It like looks super rainbowy, but sometimes you can also use the D-Stretch.
To recognize patterns.
Yes, to recognize patterns, because it's very commonly used, like I said, in the rock art research, because sometimes rock art is just slightly lighter red earth in darker red rock. I don't know.
The joys of archaeology. Oh, look, I have a slightly darker section.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think based on what we've talked about, we definitely have a few options to suggest to the Hamunaptra Revitalisation Society.
I agree. So we can use the kind of techniques that we just talked about. We can see if we can get hold of D-Stretch. I don't know if it's available in this fantasy universe, but we can see if we can find it. I'm sure we can find someone to create some sort of infrared light. Maybe we can ask the magicians.
They may disagree.
Infrared, and we'll need a well-lit room then for all the mummies so that we can look at the tattoos. And then, we can compare with iconography and material culture. We can refer to any kind of traditional knowledge that's happening and see if there's any overlap, with kind of traditional indigenous cultures and storytelling, and see if we can identify common themes and patterns, and see techniques of how the tattoos were made through kind of experimental archaeology. Ash, how do you feel about getting your first tattoo as an experimental archaeology reference collection?
I think as long as it's not the skin stitching one, I think I might feel fine.
All right, we'll find someone else for that one.
You can do that one, Tilly.
I'll do that one. Yeah. So look, I need to busy.
I forgot. There's also another technique of tattooing, which is like from the Pacific Islands.
Huh?
The one with the comb and the sticks.
Yeah,
like tapping.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tapping. Why did I forget about it? Yes, there's also that.
Yeah,
like super fast hand poke, basically, right? Like,
super fast. Yeah.
Yeah.
Super fast.
I'm so in awe of people who can get tattoos. Like it's.
I was thinking of getting a tattoo, and I think it will be hand poke.
Yeah, they look very cool.
Come to me.
Yeah. Come to Germany.
Come to Germany. Come to Germany.
We'll go to Berlin together.
Who's the head poke tattoo artist?
God. We'll get Anne Mitrell tattoos.
Oh my gosh, we totally should. Okay, we'll come back.
And use them as patterns for textiles.
Oh my God, yes.
Please don't quote me on that. I don't know.
I'll get it. I wanted to learn how to knit socks for a while, so I'll find a pattern.
And we'll get socks tattooed on us. Brilliant.
I don't think Peruvian tattoos are weaving patterns. Like it's
on recorded
tutorial.
Yeah.
I know.
We're all allowed our own interpretation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Rhoda, for coming and to help us out with this quest. Before we head out to meet the society members, do you have any interesting projects or exciting plans coming up, or just some final words that you want to share with our listeners?
Well, we have the next conference going on in Peru, actually, the 11th World Congress on Mummy Studies.
Oh, very cool.
Ooh.
Yeah. Where my colleagues will present the recent research on the tattoos we found in the collection of Peruvian tattooed human remains. But they will also do just not only tattoos, it's also studies on
maybe we should share that
just
with,
lots of mummies. Maybe it's just mummies in the audience. I don't know.
It might be the Hamunaptra Revitalisation Society conference. Like,
oh my God, they may be there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that conference is coming up, and I'm always looking for clients who want sick archaeology tattoos.
I know there's two right here.
I was about to say.
Be aware, I only do hand poke. I'm not a machine tattoo artist.
That's okay. Hand poke sounds good.
Hand poke sounds great.
Yeah.
Great. Well, yeah. So, and yeah, if anyone wants to check out the tattooing that Rhoda does, again, as I say, the contact notes are in the thing. Thank you so much for joining us. That's about it for this episode of Anne Mitrell. We hope you enjoyed this quest. Thank you again, Rhoda, for helping us out with this particular problem. It was really great to have you join us. And yeah, as Ash said, she's been taking notes the whole time. We've definitely learned a lot.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
As always, to those listening in, please do like, subscribe, follow wherever you get your podcasts. It really helps to support the show. If you're interested in hearing more archaeology content, make sure to check out the other shows on the Archaeology Podcast Network. I'm also just going to do a really quick plug for my other show on the IPN, which is
oh my God, Tilly.
Tea-Break Time Travel, soon to be rebranded as Tea-Break Archaeology, because I had Aaron and Danny on to talk about the project that Rhoda was referring to. So if you want to hear more about this project, do go and check out those episodes, and yeah, you'll learn.
There's also a publication on that.
There's many publications. We'll put the links to things in the show notes, and all further information that we talked about, all the books we mentioned and everything, all that's discussed today, Rhoda's contact info, that'll all be in the show notes. Basically, look at the show notes.
By the way, Tilly, are you free Sunday night?
I think so. Why?
Okay, because the Green Dragon are hosting an open mic night, and I thought it might be fun to go along and do some dancing on the table.
That does sound like fun.
Oh, can I come?
Please do.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And actually, that reminds me of something else that I meant to talk to you about, Ash.
The Archaeology Podcast Network is 10 years old this year. Our executive producer is Ashley Airy, our social media coordinator is Matilda Seabrecht, and our chief editor is Rachel Roden. The Archaeology Podcast Network was co-founded by Chris Webster and Tristan Boyle in 2014 and is part of Cultural Media and DigTech LLC.
This has been a presentation of the Archaeology Podcast Network. Visit us on the web for show notes and other podcasts at www.archpodnet.com. Contact us at chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com.